You can't go back. And so we've seen so many people who have saved so much money and they're afraid to spend it.
Yeah.
And they're like, I've got to work till I'm 70 and then I'll retire, then I'll travel, then I'll do things, when it's like, you really have enough money today in your late 50s, early 60s, and you have the health to go do things. So go do it.
Yes.
Sometimes people just need permission.
Yep. So in today's video, we'll be looking at retirement regrets that keep you poor. Now, we've worked with tons and tons of retirees, folks that are getting ready to retire, those who have retired, and those who are, in that decision-making phase. We've worked through all of those stages with folks all across the country, and we've seen some patterns and some ideas that have prevented folks from being able to really retire when they want to and on their own terms, and we're going to share those with you. We actually have so many that we got to do a part two here, and so
we'll do this one, and then we'll come back.
That'll come up next time, but that's why we're making this video, so let's get right into it.
Okay, so regrets.
Oh,
We all have regrets. So I think one of the first things we've seen is that people think there's a traditional age of retirement.
You have to retire at this age.
Yeah. And I know people who thankfully, have done well enough to retire in their early to mid 50s. I have a good friend who kind of sadly retired due to medical reasons, but he's doing okay because the VA's paying and he has retirement. And so he's doing okay, but he's late 50s. And then I know some people who are still working part-time jobs, still getting up and going to work in their 80s and 90s. And so there is really no traditional age, but that can really mess things up if you think you have to retire or have to keep working. Either of those extremes can cause problems and can cause tremendous regret in doing that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, when some of our biggest points throughout, all of the content that we produce is don't have a cookie cutter plan. Personalize it to yourself. In my opinion, you cannot afford to have a cookie cutter plan.
Yeah.
Because what if you find out 10 years in that there was a tool or strategy we could use that would save you tens of thousands of dollars, or make those 10 years a lot more enjoyable? That feeling of regret of not knowing something is so painful, and it's the most expensive mistake you can make. You can't go back.
You can't go back. And so we've seen so many people who have saved so much money and they're afraid to spend it.
Yeah.
And they're like, I've got to work till I'm 70 and then I'll retire, then I'll travel, then I'll do things, when it's like, you really have enough money today in your late 50s, early 60s, and you have the health to go do things. So go do it.
Yes.
Sometimes people just need permission to say or hear from someone else, you've done well. You've done well. You can take this trip. It's not going to devastate you.
It's probably good that you get that advice from a professional, not from your brother-in-law's cousin's ex-roommate who, made a good stock pick one time. Sure. I mean, some of these are kind of funny, but it's like really happens, So the first one is, don't assume that there's just a one time that you can retire.
Yeah.
Whatever your full retirement age is, whether it's, 66, 66 and a half, 67, that doesn't mean that you have to retire then.
Yeah.
That's just your full retirement age for Social Security. That's not when you have to retire.
Right.
We see that all the time. All right. The second one, this is one that is kind of challenging for us. Because this is one that we can't control as much as we would like. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
When's the next best time? Right now. That's if you want a tree. You might not want a tree. That's another issue, right? But
well, same thing about savings.
Yeah, same thing about savings. This is where I'm going with this is, waiting too long to start saving for retirement or putting it off until next year, huge mistake and huge missed opportunity.
We would love to be your accountability partner. Say, Tom, why did you not invest this year? Well, if you need someone to kind of ride your case, we can do that for you, but in a good way. And I think what's really cool, and I'll admit I was not great at this. I do have that regret. Had someone sat down with me and said, look, if you'll just put back $1,000 a year or $10,000 a year, to me, that's like, well, that's not much money. But the power of compounding interest
over time.
If someone could show me, if you'll do $10,000 a year for 10 years, in 20 years, you'll have this much money. And it's like, whoa, that's, I think some people need to be shown what this will do. They just think, what's, $50 out of this paycheck? It's just $50.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just $50 that grows and compounds. And I think that's a huge regret. And sometimes people may need someone to show them and then someone for them to be accountable to.
I think that's totally right. The other ways that I think about it is folks sometimes feel the need to have permission that they can't afford to save.
Right.
We don't spend a ton of time on the B word, budgeting, but we do try to create spending plans. And so our philosophy generally is that we want to fund investments first and spend out of the rest of that. We do kind of zero-based budgeting, and that's a very, very effective strategy.
Number 3, there's free money out there.
There is.
Truly is free money. And a lot of people don't take advantage of it.
Someone's going to yell at me for this one, but that's okay. You can email us.
It's true. I mean,
It is.
Your employer's 401k, if they match, if you put in 3%, they put in 3. That's free money.
It's a 100% rate of return on that money. One of my very favorite arguments that I've ever gotten into on Twitter, and there's a handful of them.
Trust me.
Sometimes I like to argue, guys. I just want to tell you,
does.
like, and it's not because I want to be mean. It's just because if I'm right, the way that I think about it is, it doesn't make me better or worse than anyone. I'm interested in knowing the truth. And if I'm wrong, I want to know that. But if I'm not wrong, then I'm going to defend my position.
Sure.
And so this is one that I argued with someone about, and they were like, no, it would be better to pay off, high yield debt than to do the match. And I'm going, no, it's not. What's the debt? Okay, the credit card is 29%. Okay, 100% is greater than 29%. Even after tax, it's a higher return. So, if you have an employer that doesn't match, you must, this is advice. You have to get the match. At least do that and start. And look, a lot of the folks that we work with, we're well beyond that. We've gotten past the point that they understand that's important. But for folks that may come across this that are earlier on in their career, that's something that you really want to do is get at least the match. You're not gonna miss it. As much as you can contribute to that 401k, do it. You got to do it.
Got to do it.
You're not going to miss the money. And if you do, we got bigger problems. So
yeah. And it's matched 100% and it grows. It's a fantastic.
As long as you invest it. We have to make sure the money then is invested. That's a whole other job. But
that's the other thing. All right. Regret number 4. Okay. Sometimes people focus on certain things, and with Google and the internet, we always say there's a lot of information out there. You can get a lot of information, and one of those things is investment strategies.
People love strategies.
Yeah, you can find strategies all over the place, and if you're approaching Social Security age, you're like, oh, I've got to save money, this strategy. And someone says, well, when are you going to take Social Security? Oh, well, the cookie cutter answer is at 65 or 70 or just whatever. I'll just take it sometime. But there's a strategy for that. And if you mess that up, that's a lot of money that you're going to lose out on.
Yeah, it's interesting, like Social Security optimization is not very sexy. Sorry.
Yeah.
It doesn't
investment strategies are cool.
Oh, it feels like, like this stock's going to do this, or here's some options, or this, that, or the other. Look, it's cool. We can do all those things. That's great. Now, I will give a word of caution. If you can't figure out how the person who's selling you the strategy makes money, you need to be concerned. Okay?
Oh, Ian.
Sorry. I'm always a fun killer here. But look, we make our money on fees. People pay us fees to help them make good decisions. It's very straightforward. But if you can't figure out exactly how they're making money, that's when we need to be concerned. But focusing too much on investments and not focusing on building tax efficiency, when to claim Social Security, how you're going to pay for healthcare, these are much bigger issues.
Well, and we had a client who literally said, they were looking at us, thinking about transferring their funds to us. And you said, what did your previous advisor tell you about Social Security?
This is one of my favorite stories.
And their answer was?
Well, we tell all of our clients to blank. Which is so funny because sometimes when I'm talking with folks, I'll ask process questions because I want to understand how you think, right? And so one I love to ask is, if you haven't claimed Social Security, what's the plan or what's the process for claiming Social Security? Or if you have an advisor, I'll say, hey, what's your advisor's plan or process for figuring that out? And that's what I asked them. And they told me, and this has actually happened with this particular firm, advisors at this firm, a number of times. The client will say, it's almost funny how often this happens. It's like they're coached to tell their clients to say it's weird. And they'll say, well, we tell all our clients to take it at this age because of this reason. And I go, hang on, I'm just going to, I want to say that back to you for just a moment. And I want you to think about it for just a second. They tell all of their clients to do the same thing for a reason that is technically accurate. The reason that it's there's a tiny bit of technical accuracy in the answer, but it's not personalized.
Mm-mm.
That's the problem, guys.
Everyone's
It's got to be
situation's different.
personalized.
Yeah.
And so, in that particular client's case, at least one of my favorite ones of that particular client's case, them making that decision would be objectively from a planning perspective wrong. It was a bad recommendation.
That's bad
And it
advice.
was going to cost them, in their case, because they had a pension, they have some tax issues, it was going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars over their lifetime. That's not a small amount of money. Now, making an extra 1 or 2% can be cool, and that can compound over a long time. But from tax planning perspective and social security planning, those are really, really high leverage strategies that we can use. That, yeah, they're maybe not as exciting as the next hottest, greatest investment, but they can have a bigger impact in your plan, and that's why we focus on those more than just investments.
Number 5. All right. So I think the 5th regret people have is the B word.
Okay. Yep. Which we translate.
We don't like the B word. Ian likes the word of a spending plan, not a budget.
We don't like to talk about budgets.
The B word is budgets. And so you particularly need a budget when you're on a fixed income and you're wanting to go do some things and travel. But rather than dreading that, and I am talking to myself, rather than dreading that, look at it as permission. If we budget or if we plan our spending correctly, we know we can do this. You'll sleep better at night knowing when I take the $20,000 France trip, I know I can afford that. It's something I've always wanted to do. We can afford it, and it's not going to devastate us, rather than just willy-nilly going out there and it's like, hey, let's do this and that, and then finally figuring out, oh no, we're broke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
there's not enough months left in the budget.
Exactly.
This is an area where my personal bias does come into my planning. And anyone that is a good, honest financial planner will tell you they have biases. I have biases, but we can think of it as a lens and through which I view the world, and that affects my planning. As long as we understand it, we can correct for it. But I'm the same way. Like, to me, focusing on how we can minimize expenses, it's limited in its power in the long run. What I'm more interested in is being proactive about how do we spend money well? How do we do that intentionally?
Yep.
It opens your brain, it opens your mind, it opens possibilities rather than like focusing on, okay, how do we stop this? Like, it's very stressful.
Yeah.
Like trying to live on a very tight budget is very, very stressful. And so what's more impactful is, okay, what's important and how do we pay for it? How do we figure out what those things are? And how do we pay for it proactively and intentionally? You're looking to the horizon, you're looking to the future rather than looking to the past and looking down. The body language is interesting to me, thinking through that, but it's really about how do we align our wealth and our money with what's important to us. And it sounds touchy-feely, and it is a little bit, but what we find is that it lets people enjoy, at least it seems like they enjoy their life a lot more.
Permission. It gives them permission.
It gives them permission.
Yeah.
And when you're intentional, you enjoy it more.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion. Now, we can only cover, these regrets in a small amount of detail in this video and in the part 2 video that's coming out, and we have to move on. But if you're still worried about retiring with regrets, just like this one, knowing exactly how much you need to retire is the best way to prevent this, creating a personalized plan. And that's exactly why we created an entirely free quiz to help you do just that. Answer a couple questions regarding your situation, and we will put it into our software, create a video for you, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do in order to retire. On a quick side note, we were working with a client just the other day, mentioned something super interesting. We asked them what they thought would be one of the most helpful resources for someone who's about to retire. This is why we created this video, and avoid all of these regrets. And we expected them to say something like a list of withdrawal strategies, but their answer was a lot more interesting. They said that they wish they could have pushed a button, known exactly how much they needed to retire without any confusion. And so that got us thinking, well, there's no resource out there like that one, at least that we were comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so, because we care so much about personalizing things. And so we wanted to create one, kind of an easy button for people looking to retirement to determine exactly how much they need. And so that's why we created this entirely free quiz to help you do exactly that. So here's how it works. You fill out a few questions according to your exact situation, and you'll have an exact figure of what you need to retire within a few minutes. After you've completed it, we'll review that, and then we will, just like with that client that we worked with, we'll send you a quick video breaking down some of the key points and give you an idea of whether or not you're on track. So to get started, click the link in the description and take the free quiz now.